Digital sovereignty is no longer a policy discussion, it's an architectural one. Regulators across every region are influencing where data resides, how it moves, how it gets processed, and who controls it. Infrastructure must be compliant by design and not optimized after deployment. At the same time, your customers are modernizing fast, moving to cloud, operating globally, and deploying AI while navigating very strict local rules such as GDPR and the NIS2 and the DORA in EMEA. So we could say that the AI ambition is colliding with the reality of sovereignty. Public clouds help organizations move fast, but when sensitive or regulated data is involved, they raise critical questions about data location, jurisdictions, and control. Questions that CIOs and risk leaders must answer to their regulators, auditors, and boards. This is why we're seeing a decisive shift to regain architectural control over where the data lives, how the models are trained, and how compliance is enforced to solve the tension. So, for system integrators, this is where the opportunity lies. With a foundation that is secure by design, sovereign, compliant, and deeply interconnected. And to dive deeper, we have our own data sovereignty expert joining us today, Matthias Gunther. So, welcome, Matthias.
Thank you, Pierre. Glad to be here.
So, Matthias, our system integration partners are frequently asked to architect solutions that meet strictly regulatory requirements while also at the same time addressing data location, control, and risk. So, can you please, Matthias, talk about the difference between compliance and sovereignty?
That's a great question, Pierre. Understanding the difference between compliance and sovereignty is critical, not just for sound architecture decisions, but also for helping partners position more differentiated, higher value solutions. So let me start with sovereignty because it's widely used but rarely defined consistently. People often mean different things when they're talking about it. At a high level, sovereignty is about who has authority, control, and jurisdiction over data and digital infrastructure. In practice, sovereignty shows up in several dimensions. I'll highlight four. Digital sovereignty as the umbrella concept. That means an organization's ability to maintain autonomy and reduce dependency across the full technology stack. Data sovereignty, covering where data is stored and processed, how it moves, and which laws apply. Operational sovereignty, meaning who operates and controls the infrastructure and the services. And AI sovereignty, which includes control over models, versions, data usage, and governments. What's important to understand is that sovereignty is usually driven by risk, trust, and long-term control, not just by compliance requirements. Now, compliance isn't the opposite of sovereignty, even though it's often framed that way. I see compliance as governments defining a minimal level of sovereignty that organizations must meet to protect customers, industries, and citizens. There's no debate here. You must comply with the rules of the countries and industries you operate in. Compliance is largely binary. You're either compliant or you're not. So if compliance is the floor, then digital sovereignty is the ceiling. Digital sovereignty goes beyond minimum requirements. It's about having stronger control over where data lives, who can access it, and how resilient and adaptable your architecture is across jurisdictions and platforms. As a result, an organization can be fully compliant, yet not truly sovereign, for example, still exposed to geopolitical risks, operational dependencies, or platform lock-in. And one final point that's often overlooked, business goals. Sovereignty must be balanced with growth, agility, connectivity, and global reach while remaining compliant. Ultimately, it's about control, choice, and connectivity without compromise.
Thank you, Matthias. I have another question for you. From your perspective, why is neutrality and control at the digital infrastructure layer so important for partners delivering sovereign solutions?
Yeah, that's also a great question, Pierre. So when a system integrator delivers sovereign solutions, neutrality and control at the digital infrastructure layer are foundational. So they shouldn't be fixed or limiting. The real issue isn't whether an architecture supports resilience or agility. It's whether it forces customers to choose between them. Most customers want both. That requires a flexible architecture that supports today's needs and can adapt as requirements change, And this is where Equinix adds immediate value. So, in practice, most customers aren't looking for absolute sovereignty everywhere, if that's even achievable. What they want is a balanced approach aligned with their business goals. So, that means having meaningful control over where data lives, clarity over where and who operates the infrastructure, and transparency into dependencies on providers or jurisdictions. So, risks can be managed if conditions change. Let me make that more tangible with a simple example. Imagine a retail bank that's launching a new digital service, fully compliant with data stored correctly and all audits passed. But when the business asks, can we expand this into another market or switch payment providers? And the answer is slow or constrained, not because of regulation, but because of architectural dependencies and limited control. So, bottom line, organizations need architectures that provide flexibility and resilience with access to a broad ecosystem, allowing them to respond quickly and without major disruptions. And that is where Equinix neutral digital infrastructure enables real differentiation for system integrators. Neutrality allows architectures that span multiple clouds, providers, and ecosystems without locking customers in or limiting future options. And this works consistently, locally and globally across more than 75 geographies. So at the same time, customers need to balance sovereignty with needs like performance, scalability, and speed to market, because sovereignty isn't the end goal, business outcomes are. So as system integrators, you play a critical role in achieving that balance, using neutral, controlled infrastructure to meet today's requirements while keeping future options open. Sovereignty isn't something you buy, it's something you design for. So for system integrators, that creates a significant opportunity to move upstream into more strategic, consultative engagements and build long-term managed services that evolve with the customer. And most importantly, control remains with the customer, not the infrastructure provider.
Thank you, Matthias. Okay, let's now take a look at some real-world examples of building sovereign and compliance solutions on Equinix. I'd like to introduce you all to Ana Maria, who's one of our global principal solution architects. Hi, Ana Maria. Could you tell us from your perspective, how are our GSI partners translating customer regulatory requirements into the right architectural designs?
Yes, hi Pierre, and thank you for the question and for having me here. Because this is actually where systems integrators play a very important role because they're sitting right at that critical intersection. Let's refer back to Matthias' analogy about the compliance, the country-specific regulatory requirements, right, as that floor, and then the digital sovereignty needs as that ceiling. Now, think of that technical design as the furniture inside this room. The systems integrator is essentially the interior designer that has to make the furniture fit. And what we say is that we can be, Equinix is kind of one of their general contractors, right? One of the ones that will help them really get to that right design as well. Their role is to translate those country regulations into clear, non negotiable architectural principles. Items like data sovereignty, controls, agility, and resiliency for the organizations to manage their infrastructure, data, networks, and workloads in compliance with all of such regulations. In practice, that means keeping regulated data with jurisdictional boundaries, independently segmenting control and data planes, and supporting active-active failover for latency-sensitive workloads. So it's a lot about infrastructure, but really wrapped around all of these requirements for compliance and sovereignty. This is where Equinix adds real value. Our global footprint allows partners to serve customers locally while providing the lowest latency connectivity to the cloud and network providers, making it easier for systems integrators to deliver compliant, scalable, and globally connected solutions.
Thank you, Ana Maria. Okay, now let's dive into some use cases. Ana Maria, could you please share a use case where a partner has leveraged Equinix to meet the strict data sovereignty and compliance requirements while still enabling global connectivity at scale?
Sure, Pierre. The use cases that we're going to be bringing up today are all throughout the world, given that we have a global footprint and sovereignties are global needs for those local countries. So, for this one specifically, we're going to travel to Australia. The main reason I like this use case is because this is a partner who built a platform to support their own customer sovereignty needs in the APAC region, Australia, and other places in Asia Pacific. Our partner was looking for a resilient, state of the art data center provider with their lowest latency possible to the cloud providers, private connectivity as well to the network providers, and footprint of Australian entities already running in these data centers. Equinix was the right partner for them. They essentially built a private disaster recovery as a service environment for their customers, while they stay compliant with data sovereignty that supports Australian privacy principles, ensuring that the personal data remains under Australian jurisdiction. This is important because it protects these assets from foreign data compulsion laws like the Cloud Act, amongst others. So here in the partner deployed their compute, the network and storage in Sydney and in Melbourne, Australia. Equinix provided the space, the power, and all of the private interconnection with Equinix Fabric to the cloud providers' Australian availability zones. In the future, they plan to register in our marketplace as a sovereign provider. This would facilitate existing Australian customers looking to solve for their compliance and sovereign needs in Australia. Our Equinix Fabric is our proprietary global backbone that offers on-demand private and secure connectivity to all Equinix customers. So not only to the cloud providers, but anyone who has presence at Equinix. Equinix Fabric also provides geo-boundary services across our Australian data centers, making sure the routes never leave Australian land. We refer to this specific service as Equinix Fabric GeoZones, and we're able to provide it in many different zones around the world. This use case, Pierre, essentially illustrates how Equinix acts as a neutral sovereign foundation, letting service providers build compliant multi-country offerings without centralizing data offshore.
Thanks, Ana Maria. This was very insightful. So, for our next use case, I would like to ask you, how do sovereignty-first architectures differentiate system integrators when supporting government and specifically public sector organizations?
Yes, Pierre. So for this use case, we're going to travel to Europe. We have a success story with the public sector agency based in the UK. They are responsible for critical national services and from driving tests to vehicle safety and compliance across the country. Like many public sector organizations, this agency was under pressure to modernize, moving away from long-term inflexible contracts and adopting a cloud-first strategy, while still meeting strict sovereign controls over sensitive citizen and transport data security and compliance requirements under local law. This platform is not only to support internal users, but more importantly, it supports the British citizens. This made it a very critical use case. Their most immediate challenge came around COVID times, when their VPN-based cloud access couldn't scale and posed performance and resilience risks. Initially, to solve for their immediate VPN bottleneck, the fastest way possible was for Equinix to provide redundant virtual Palo Alto firewalls through our own network function virtualization platform that we call Equinix Network Edge. The best part of the environment is that it's already connected to our fabric switches, as well as internet access, making that connectivity portion easy to deploy. including the IPsec tunnel configuration that the customer would actually configure for their VPN users and private connectivity to their cloud providers, which actually reduce their latency from 25 milliseconds to about 8 milliseconds. Once they understood how complete Equinix offerings are, they decided to expand their footprint with us, not only virtually, but also with physical infrastructure in London for a more robust core network access point. In this case, having our Equinix GeoZone service available for the UK was huge plus to making sure their routes across London and Manchester stayed within British territory. This case demonstrates, Pierre, how governments can adopt cloud at scale without relinquishing legal control or exposing data to foreign jurisdictions, a core requirement for sovereign digital services.
Thank, thank you, Ana Maria. I would say that's indeed a powerful example of how Equinix enables system integrators to deliver cloud modernization that is secure, sovereign, and compliant by design, specifically in highly regulated public sector environments. All right. So system integrators are creating the most long-term value today, particularly in environments where milliseconds, security, and regulatory boundaries all matter. Can you walk us through another use case, please?
Yes, for this last use case, we'll travel to South America. In addition to the public sector, financial services are also a very high regulated industry that have long prioritized data sovereignty, compliance, and ultra low millisecond latency. A great example of this is what we see with the stock exchanges across the world. In capital markets, milliseconds matter, but so do regulatory boundaries and control over where the data lives and how it moves. The challenge wasn't just connecting trading firms to the cloud, it was doing it in a way that preserved deterministic performance while meeting strict data residency and compliance requirements. One of the largest financial market organizations in the world worked with a systems integrator in Latin America to advise them on their best architecture that supported the regulatory requirements. They needed to comply with strict national sovereignty and financial market regulations, including Brazil's LGPD and the central bank requirements. Its challenge was enabling low latency access for global trading firms while ensuring the core market data and systems remain under Brazilian legal authority. The systems integrator recommended Equinix for their resilient data centers, private connectivity with low latency to the cloud providers, and an equidistant cross connect to the traders in Sao Paulo. Critical trading and market-facing infrastructure was deployed locally, ensuring data remained within jurisdiction and under customers' control. Once again, in this case, Equinix Fabric GeoZones was implemented to support digital sovereignty, but making sure that network routes stay within that resilient territory.
Thanks so much, Ana Maria. Okay, let's bring back Matthias now. Matthias, could you please provide an overview that ties into the Equinix value in this space?
Yeah, of course. So to summarize what we are seeing in the markets of what you've probably heard from customers as well is our mutual customers are asking for sovereignty. And importantly, their sovereignty needs are not uniform. Sovereignty is not an out-of-the-box product that you can simply add to an existing environment. So that is where the opportunity for system integrators comes in. By treating compliance, resilience, performance, and connectivity as core design principles, you can build architectures that not only meet today's requirements, can adapt as these requirements change. Equinix gives you these building blocks to architect sovereignty for our mutual customers. This allows you to develop repeatable, region-aware architectures that scale globally without having to re-architect every time that a customer enters a new market. And with Equinix Global Presence, you can accelerate both market entry and sovereignty across all required geographies. So for system integrators, this is about more than risk management. This is a powerful way to differentiate, build trust, and deliver architectures that customers can confidently stand behind, both with regulators today and as they future-proof their infrastructure. So this is where Equinix plays a critical role in your solutions as the foundational layer that enables secure interconnection, supports local compliance needs, and still allows customers to operate and scale globally with confidence.
Thanks, Matthias. How do system integrators handle sovereignty requirements that vary by country, industry, or workload?
Yeah, so the first thing is to stop thinking about sovereignty as a single requirement, because it's not. Different workloads carry very different level of risk, either regulatory, legal, or even reputational. So a payment system or a patient data platform is going to need much tighter control than, let's say, a marketing application. So what a good system integrator does is to break down that by workload by workload. So you don't need to apply a blanket approach. Instead, you design architectures where sovereignty is applied where it really matters. So that way you stay compliant and in control for that sensitive stuff, but you don't over-engineer everything else. Because if you treat every workload the same, you either create risk or you slow business down, and the goal is to do neither.
We've got another question. Do you see air gapping as the ultimate sovereignty solution?
Yeah, also an interesting question, and we see that a lot recently. So air gapping is not the ultimate sovereignty solution. It absolutely has its place. Think about very specific high security scenarios, military or classified environments. There it makes sense. But it comes with a real trade-off, which is connectivity. It's really isolated, hence the name. And that's where it often breaks down in practice, because sovereignty isn't really about isolation, it's about control. Control where your data sits, who operates it, and how independent you are over time. So if you look at governments, for example, yes, some workloads need to be completely isolated, but most don't. Think about public services. By definition, they need to be connected to citizens. So your question shouldn't be, can we air gap everything? It should be more, how do we get the right level of control without breaking how businesses, our business or services actually need to operate?
We got one more question. What should system integrators avoid if they want to preserve sovereignty over time?
Yeah, the biggest mistake I see is making one-way decisions. So designing architectures that are tightly coupled, locked into one provider, or even tied to a single jurisdiction. That might solve the problem today, but it really limits your options tomorrow. So because sovereignty isn't a point in time problem. Things change, regulations change, geopolitics change, business priorities change. So you have to design with that in mind. And what a good system integrator does is keep flexibility in the architecture. They avoid hard dependencies and they make sure customers keep control over those key levers over time. Because ultimately, avoiding lock-in isn't just about good design, it's what builds long-term trust. And that's what turns a project into a real strategic partnership.